Roswell Beer Fest, and welcome to our Brewers discussion panel. If you'd like to join us, come on over. We're going to be talking to your Roswell Brewers. We're going to get this started right now, and we'll start with introductions of our panel guests. Over here on my far left, we have Pat Raines with Gate City Brewing Company. We have Kathy Davis with Abbey of the Holy Goats.
Hey guys.
We have Tim Stevens with From the Earth Brewing. And here to my right, we have Matt and Lauren Curling of Variant Brewing Company.
Hey.
Thank you all for joining us today. We really appreciate it. We're going to take a little time here and just talk to you about beer brewing in Roswell. So we'll get things started here. Pat, you guys, Gate City is Roswell's first modern brewery. So kind of breaking the trend in here, why did you guys choose to locate in Roswell?
Yeah, Tim, for us, it was always about being in Roswell. As you know, we started alternating proprietorship with Reformation over in Woodstock, and the whole time we were doing that, it was really about getting into Roswell and finding the right space. That was one of the most difficult things, was just finding the proper space for a brewery in Roswell. But Brian and I were both living here, raising families here. We were both active in the community with the Roswell Rotary Club, and we knew what a great community this was. So for us, there was never a choice. It was just about figuring out the proper location here. We wanted to be a part of this great community and felt, just like these guys have seen, that Roswell was very supportive and open to having a brewery and multiple breweries.
Awesome. That's it. Matt, question for you. What led you down the brewing path? What got you started brewing?
It's not a crazy exciting story. Just started home brewing when I was 21 and kind of just fell in love with the process, obviously the end result, the beer, but really the creativity of brewing and changing, one ingredient at a time, small things, seeing what a drastic change you could, have on that beer and the end result. I really kind of fell in love with brewing before I fell in love with beer. So it was really just a lot of fun for me, and kind of passion turned business.
And like Pat in Gate City, you had the intentions you were going to start in Roswell, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I was born and raised here, so it always kind of was Roswell for us. We looked around and we did look other places, but at the end of the day, we're glad we're here, and we didn't really want to be anywhere else.
Kathy, what's the inspiration for your beer and your brewery?
So I've had a lot of different inspirations in my life, but what got me here was I was a classically trained chef and then decided to leave to become a nun, and after that have a goat farm. And in the midst of all of that, my parents gave me a brew kit and started brewing beer almost 15, 16 years ago at this point. But as both of these guys say, I live in Roswell, and I have lived here since 2010, and I actually went to high school in Alpharetta, so Roswell's always been a point of interest for us. But our beer is always designed around food. It's meant to complement food. It's the complexity around that different flavor profile that just really pairs well with food. So that's really our inspiration.
Now, I think some may have missed it because you kind of brushed over this pretty quick, but you said you were a classically trained chef,
Yes.
a nun, a goat farmer,
Almost a goat farmer.
Almost a goat farmer, and then a brewer, right?
Correct. And
Okay.
there are a couple other things in there too.
Okay.
But we won't get into that.
All right, gotcha.
Assassin doesn't translate well.
Doesn't translate.
Yeah.
Could come in helpful in a brewery, right? Yes. Now, Tim, you're From the Earth is a brew pub instead of a brewery. So what is the difference in a brewery and a brew pub, and why did you decide to open as a brew pub?
Well, the difference is mainly, there's quite a few. The big difference is we serve food. We've got a full operating kitchen. And with that goes the laws where we have to sell 51% of food in that brew pub and 49% beer, liquor, wine. So that's really the big difference. Why I chose that is my background is all in restaurants. I wanted to create a different type of dining experience, something that I would really enjoy going to, and love beer, love food, and music, and those are the three big passions that we have tied into From the Earth.
And that's because you do have live music there pretty regularly, correct?
Yeah, every Thursday, and we also have it quite often in addition to every Thursday as well. Yeah, but every Thursday is the schedule.
Now, Kathy, another question for you. What has been most rewarding about opening your brewery, and is it anywhere near as rewarding as being a nun or almost goat farmer?
That's a very philosophical question.
Right.
My biggest reward, I guess, is seeing people actually enjoy what you're making. I know that's kind of a mundane answer, but that really is. I mean, you're creating a product that you really believe in and something that you enjoy drinking, and being able to share that with people, not just the product itself, but the experience in our tasting room, or the idea behind our brand.
Now, your tasting room has a very communal feel to it. You've got a long table. Was that intentional?
Completely
bringing
intentional.
people together.
So, Abbey of the Holy Goats, the Abbey part is really meant to speak to the actual brewery, not less than our brand, but it's about that whole Abbey experience when you walk in and you sit at a communal table. We don't have a TV going. There's no sports on. There's games to be played, but I mean, a lot of them are you have to play with people you don't know. So it's all about creating community and communing with the community.
Awesome. Now, Matt or Lauren, question for you: what has been the most surprising thing about brewing for y'all?
I'd have to say paperwork. Everybody thinks that we're just hanging out, brewing beer, drinking beer, having a good time all day, every day, and that's true some of the time. But a large portion of the time, more than I would like, you're really sitting behind a desk, crunching numbers, filling out paperwork, filling out ATT 104s, brand registrations, and there's a lot of red tape in what we do. It's a highly regulated industry. It's all not fun in beer, but the end result and the overall process is very rewarding, so it's definitely worth it.
I think a lot of home brewers, they want to make that jump to be a professional brewer, but it is a totally different world. The home brewer hanging out in their garage with a few buddies, or their basement with a few buddies brewing beer, is one thing, but I never had to fill out an ATT 104. I don't have to register any of my brands as a home brewer there. So it is work. It's a job. It's a business. So there's a lot more to it than just hanging out, brewing, and drinking beer.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
So Pat, another question for you: if you were not doing what you are today, what would you be doing with your life?
That's a great question. So I came from a international forest products manufacturing company. So I was actually doing import, export, and sales and distribution. So if I hadn't taken the leap from that to start Gate City, I'd probably still be in that position. I did that for 12 years before I started Gate City, and I enjoyed it. There was a little bit of slowdown kind of with the housing and everything that happened with that. And so it had been some slower times, but things are starting to pick back up right now. So I'm sure if I hadn't started Gate City, I'd probably still be importing lumber.
Okay, exciting stuff. Importing lumber there.
Sales and distribution.
So Tim, question for you: knowing what you know now, if you had to go back and do it again, would you do anything differently?
Study more.
Study? Yes.
Yeah. No. As far as building out the brewery, I think I'd need more space. I think that's the biggest thing is my refrigeration is not large enough, keg washer, and I point for a reason. And, all the things for a production brewery that we couldn't afford for just the square footage, the footprint of them, is really kind of coming back and making me think that maybe we should have gone a little bigger.
Would anybody say that their space is big enough?
No.
Mine is not. Mine is.
There you go. See, I think you're probably one of the few that would say
25%.
that.
Yeah.
I do have a 800 square foot walk-in.
So, Lauren, other than your own beer, what are some of your other favorites?
Honestly, I would have to say anything local. When I do have time off, the little amount of time off that I have, I go to all their places pretty much. Anything that's in driving distance. I love supporting the local breweries and brew pubs. Other than that, New Glarus is one of my favorites as well up in Wisconsin.
Right.
Anything that's heavily fruited and sour, I love. So that's probably one of my favorites as well.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Now, you can tell you have a passion for beer because you even just go ahead and tattoo it on your arm there, right?
I
so
do,
you got a
yeah.
hop cone tattooed there.
Absolutely.
Very awesome. Pat, why is it important to support local breweries?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, especially with all of the laws changing recently and everything. I think you're starting to see more local breweries and more of a hyper-local type model. And it's important to support those people that are going out and taking a risk and doing what they love and creating jobs and creating fun environments around you. And you know, the beer is a big part of it, but just creating jobs and the economic impact that breweries can have, I think is really just starting to be seen here in Georgia with some of those law changes. And so it's always great to support a local small business owner, and breweries especially, I think, generally have an idea of giving back, pretty involved in the community, I think, as a whole. And so I think not only with people supporting breweries, they can give back to the community and support the community as well.
Very awesome. Now, Kathy, your brewery focuses a lot on Belgian beer styles.
Yep.
So what are some of the characteristics of Belgian beers, and why did you decide to focus on those styles?
So, going back to that nun story, it's not a story. I had taken lay vows here in Atlanta, and I was joining the Abbey up in Nova Scotia. And 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave, a brand new pub had just opened in Decatur called Brickstore Pub. And my best friend took me there and convinced me not to move to Abbey over a lot of Belgian beer. And I just really fell in love with that style. But I like to focus on it because of my past with culinary. And I think Belgian beer is just the openness to that style really goes well with food. I mean, there's such complex flavoristics within that beer. You can go all the way from a Pater's beer to a Belgian Red Strong at 14%, to even the Belgian sours. I mean, the complexities within that style is just so complex. And the ester profiles is just very different than anything else that's going on right now. I mean, we ferment up to 90 degrees on some of our saisons, and that's just unheard of for American beers. So we like that heavy ester profile, that bubblegumness, that, again, I've overused this word, but complexity of flavor is just really what we're after. I don't want a two-dimensional beer. I want, the warmer the beer gets, you want to be able to taste 4 to 5 dimensions within that beer, no matter what temperature it is.
Right, and you mentioned the Potter's beer, which is not a real popular style in the U.S., but that's, you talk about complexity of flavor, so that's one where you can get the lower ABV level, but still get a lot of complexity and depth out of the beer, correct?
Yeah, I mean, ours is a 4.2 beer, so I mean, we're talking super low. It's 98 calories, but I mean, the flavor within it, most people say that I can't believe this is not like a 6.5% ABV beer.
It's a diet beer. Can you
It is
put
a
that
diet
on the label? You know, diet beer? No.
We could get away with light beer.
Right, yeah.
Light ale.
Now, Tim, kind of leading on what Kathy talked about with the depth of flavors and pairing ability and that, a lot of people still look to wine when they're looking to pair, you know, with their food, with their meal and that. But beer continues to gain in popularity, and there's a lot more restaurants you'll go to that will have a fairly in-depth beer menu and offer beer pairing choices there. So with From the Earth, do you look at your beer and your food hand in hand when you're creating them?
Yeah, I mean, more so on the menu side, that we want to incorporate our beers into braising liquids and batters and things like that, so we can pair very easily. Then we go into some more intense, we called it a beer blanc on one of our beer dinners we did. It's like a beer blanc, but instead of with white wine, we did it with beer, and it turned out really, really nice. So we're kind of taking the same components of cooking with wine, which everybody is pretty familiar with, and doing it with beer, and it's working well.
So not even looking at just the pairings of that, but you're incorporating them into your recipes, like you said, with the beer blanc and that,
I think that's the easiest way to actually make a really good pairing, is to incorporate that flavor into that food. So that's what we've been doing, and it's so far so good. You know, we've done 3 beer dinners, so it's been good. It's been fun.
So if I come to From the Earth and I get your crispy Brussels sprouts, which I'm known to do from time to time, what beer should I have with those?
I'd probably go with the Golden Ale, but we've got some new things coming out here in the near future that are going to be pretty fun.
Very cool. Awesome. So I've got one final question here, but I'd like to hear from everyone on this. So Variant Brewing, From the Earth, and Roswell Beer Fest all won awards in Beer Guys Radio's Best of Beer 2017. So there was a lot of accolades for Roswell. And Tim from the Earth just got another nod in USA Today's 10 Best Brew Pubs. You got, I believe, third out of the whole U.S. there. So there's a lot, for a fairly small town as far as the beer scene goes in that. A lot of props to Roswell in that. So Pat, we'll start with you. Why is that? What makes Roswell a great beer town?
Yeah, I think it goes back to my answer earlier. I think Roswell was ready and almost past due for a brewery, and that's how you see, I think, so many coming in so quick. And the support from the residents and the community of Roswell has been overwhelming. For us, I know for everyone up here, it's been amazing to come into a community that's so receptive. I think Roswell wanted its own brewery, and it's done everything to kind of help these breweries along that it can, and so it's just become a great beer community very quickly. And I think with all of us kind of working together, we've partnered with the city as well to work on some tourism. We do our Roswell beer, where if you come and come to each brewery and you get a stamp at each brewery, then you can go to the Visitors Bureau or Visitor Center and get a free pint glass. So we work all together very well, and I think the city's just been overly supportive of all of us, and we've really brought a different aspect to Roswell that it was looking for.
Very cool. Kathy?
Ditto.
What Pat said. Pat covered everything there. Tim, anything to add to that?
Sorry,
Well,
guys.
obviously at this table there's a huge amount of passion, and I think the passion really is what's driving all aspects of the beer scene in Roswell per se, because we all want to push it to the next level. We all want it to be the best beer that we've just brewed. The passion, and I would say also the support. As Pat said, these people in Roswell want us here and support us. They promote us. They vote for us. They have really done everything that they could do to lift us up.
Right.
And I can't thank all of the Roswell locals and their guests, and my guests, your guests, Gate City's guests. They're all a huge support for the whole scene.
I will add to that. I think the reason that we all work really well together in this community is we are very different. I think you get a lot of differences within each of our breweries and how we're presented into the community that really are synergistic over an overall spans. So while we're all very friendly and overall we're all making beer, but at the same time we're doing something so unique in each of our breweries that there's space for us.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing I hadn't really mentioned, but for 4 breweries, there is a lot of diversity between all your breweries and the styles that you brew and that you focus on. So it's not something, I know, you all do IPAs or Belgian IPAs, but a lot of the breweries you go to, IPA, stout, porter, that's what you're going to see. Well, here there's a variety of the Belgian styles. There are the big IPAs, stouts, porters, sour beers. Matt, I know you've got a lot of praise for your sours that you do there and that. Tim using the golden ales and the stouts and stuff from the Earth. So there's something for everyone in Roswell, right? Yeah, awesome. Matt, Lauren, anything to add as to why Roswell is a great town for craft beer?
Everyone else, kind of already touched on it. It sounds cliche, but the consumers and the community here, without them and without, their willingness and desire to go out and try new things all the time. We're constantly having to put out new beer because people want something new. They want to try different things, and their palates are still expanding and growing. Craft beer is still a new thing, I think, to even the area that's becoming more and more familiar with it. They are still learning, and there's a lot of people. There's always something new to try. There's always something new to learn, and if we can turn someone on to, their first IPA, they're going to go to all the other breweries and try an IPA. So I think education of consumers is really important, and the community here has shown real interest in learning more about our craft. So.
Is that something I've noticed, Matt, coming to your tap room? The crowd you see there is not what you would consider the typical craft beer geek crowd. You're bringing in the locals. The locals are coming in, so these are people that are probably being exposed to a lot of these styles for the first time. So, but it seems by the fact you're always so busy. The last time I was there, we had to huddle around the space heaters on the patio because the tasting room was full. But people seem to be very receptive to these new styles.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, for us, a lot of times putting a familiar ingredient in them really helps out. You know, that's where the variants come along. So, you know, our raspberry lemon goza is very popular. We have a base version of that coming out soon. But, you know, a lot of people don't really like sours, but all of a sudden if you put something like raspberry in it that they're really familiar with, they warm up to it and they're like, okay, maybe I can actually get into this style, and they try more of them, and they go to other breweries and try their gozas and so on and so forth. So I think, you know, for us doing different, you know, unique variants and taking different fruits or spices and adjuncts and taking something familiar and putting it in something new, you know, really speaks to people. So.
Very cool. Awesome. Brewers, anything else you'd like to add to the discussion or like folks to know here? We cover it all, the basics, I guess. I'm sure there's plenty more we could cover. Well, I want to thank you all for joining us today here. I'm Tim Dennis with Beer Guys Radio. I'd like to say thanks to Pat Raines, Gate City Brewing, Kathy Davis from Abbey the Holy Goats, Tim Stevens from the Earth, Matt and Lauren Curling from Variant Brewing Company. Thank you all for listening along with us, and enjoy your beer fest.
Hey, thanks for having us.